Alright, continuing our little foray through all of our campaigns, we're at our last one for Nakai the Wanderer and the Spirit of the Jungle. So again, in this video, we're just going to go over all of the unique mechanics, technology trees, all sorts of fun things with each one of these new campaigns to decide, is this the right campaign for you when the game, or I'm sorry, the DLC, The Hunter and the Beast comes out. So with Spirit of the Jungle, we get a lot of very interesting things. And just going to say this right out the gate, this is the most unique campaign for Lizardmen, period. And I think it's also at the same time the most fun, and again, it's very challenging in different ways than the other ones are. I think 10 and 1s is also quite difficult, but this is, again, a very different campaign. And I think it's very fun and very cool. So let's take a look at what we get here. So for when we get the Wanderer, this is basically indicative of Nakai's very custom Horde faction. He does basically get a vassal that is unlocked alongside you, and we'll show you how that works in just a second. But he also gets a recruitment rank of +3 for Kroxigor Ancients. That is the new Lord version of, or the generic Lord version of Nakai himself. Look at him getting all fucking hog wild on his little plinth there as he yells out to no one in particular. But Nakai himself is just a beefy bone daddy. Like, look at this guy. He's so meaty. I really like the character model. I love everything they did with Nakai. He's so cool looking. And in a lot of ways, his campaign itself is very fun and indicative of what we're going to get with this campaign. So, where to really start here? So, there are a lot of mechanics. For one, you'll probably notice on the top here, you get a very similar, I guess you could say, UI that we get with a Lithanar, where he has targets to assassinate. And what you can do is here in this campaign, your antithesis, your main opponent, your nemesis is the Hunts Marshal, right? That's what you're going to be chasing after. Your main objective is to destroy the Hunts Marshal expedition and defeat all 4 of the hunters, as well as win the battle for Itza, the final battle of the Itza Pizza campaign here. Now, there are all 4 of these characters. Jump you to all 4 locations. They're pretty much in the same locations you have to go to if you're playing as these. Well, actually, that's not that. Erdvik von Hall is down here versus up there where I would have expected him in the Hunts Marshal's campaign. So it'll force you to like all 4 corners of Lustria, which is kind of nice right here. So you've got like up this location. Here, let me get the cursor out. Down here, right there, over here, and over there. So you're really going to be going to all 4 portions of Lustria, and that's okay. You kind of want that to happen because your focus is primarily on growing your vassal's empire. You start as, of course, the Spirit of the Jungle. And take a look at Nakai's starting army. It's pretty beefy, right? 2 Kroxigors, one of them being the Sacred Kroxigor, the new unit, then 2 units of Saurus Warriors, one's with spears, of course, and then a skin cohort with javelin, and then just Nakai himself, who is already a powerhouse. So, in order to talk about the Temple of the Old Ones and how this all works, we first have to establish our first temple. So, let us do that. We'll jump over here. This is going to be filled with some Skaven bros. And just no competition here. We're going to smash them to smithereens and take like no damage and get 232, 220, 141, 42 kills. Because, that's what you do when you're a giant lizard. So you get that, and then you get a similar kind of menu to what we get when we play Norska, where you get to dedicate this pillaged monument to a specific god of the Lizardmen. And if you don't know what you're getting, you can find out pretty quickly. For one, anytime you do this, you're going to get one towards your, I guess you could call it temple chain, and we'll take a look at these. You can see what each one gets as you go through it. But again, protection of Quetzal ability upgraded, and as it starts here and goes, clockwise. That's the way a clock works. And it gives you all these awesome abilities. Melee defense, melee attack, recruitment rank, the protection ability here. So units are vulnerable to damage, and it progresses out. Melee defense more, attack and melee defense for specific types of units here. You upgrade more for the protection of Quetzal, and then all the way up to Quetzal's esteem. So you get to see how this thing progresses. I believe this is the last step in the chain. This is the first one, and it goes all the way to... So it basically starts at like, what? 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then progresses its way all the way up to 12 o'clock. That's probably the best way to look at this. And the same thing here. So if you want a quick description, focuses mainly on Saurus and can unlock Protection of Quetzal army ability, grants temporary invulnerability. Focuses mainly on Winds of Magic and magic using characters and can unlock Storm of Zolonka army ability, creates powerful whirlwinds. and then Gift for Itzel. Focuses mainly on Kroxigor and Blessed Beasts, and can unlock Beasts of Itzel army ability. Summons Razordons. So you get a lot of really cool utility with each one of these. And I'm just going to, while I'm talking, I'm going to try and show you what each one of these have, for those of you guys that are curious. But increase to Winds of Magic, more Winds of Magic and Power Reserves. This gives you the Storm of Zolonka ability. This gives you the Winds of Magic cost reduction for Lores of Life, Heaven's Fire, Light, Beast, and High Magic. And then finally, an upgraded version of the Storm of Zolonka as well. And then when we're taking a look at Itzel, weapon strength for Kroxigors and Sacred Kroxigors, recruitment cost reduction for them, Beast of Itzel ability, which summons up a Razordon hunting pack. Then you're going to get further increase to the recruitment rank. And then also you're going to get Itzel's patronage, which will increase, or I'm sorry, will upgrade that summon ability even further. You'll also see that you get some currency of the old ones, some old ones favor here. And you'll also get gift of the old ones, which will give you an increase to your horde growth for 3 turns. So as you kind of expand this, I'm going to go with Gift of Itzel. It doesn't matter. I'm just showing you guys this stuff in the video. So your temple is built, my lord. And oh, the Wailing Banner. How nifty is that? Gift a region to the Defender of the Great Plan. And then that creates the Defenders of the Great Plan vassal faction. So they will pretty much do all the management and control of those territories you claim for them. The entire time you just go about and you run amok and do some damage. Of course, the challenging thing here is if you die, you lose, right? You're going to be building up your horde in the same way you would if you were the Vampire Coast working on your Admiral Fleet thing. Admiralty or whatever it's called, the same way as if you were a Chaos or a Beastman faction. But I think I like the way that they did this. You solely are working on military buildings here, and then you worry about, you know, buildings like this, the Old One monuments, which help with casualty replenishment, upkeep, so on and so forth. Same thing with this one, which will help out with army capacity all the way up to Untainted and hero capacity as well. So you get less of a focus on the generic kind of civic buildings and more of a focus on the recruitment. Because remember, as they said, the recruitment works, I believe it was faction-wide. I haven't really dived deep on Nakai's campaign to give you guys a 100% answer on that. But as you kind of build this up, you will unlock further recruitment and further buildings to move into and more growth, because you have a whole different research tree, which we'll jump into in just a second here. But it really makes for a fun and different campaign for the Lizardmen as a whole. Because you take a look here at the temples of the old ones. You can see our progression, right? So we've already built one temple here. Boom, Itza's Grace. Now, we also get a number of abilities outside of these that you can then summon using that old one's favor. Remember, you get old one's favor. Now, let's hover over this. By establishing temples, by doing missions, certain technologies, rewards, rights, so on and so forth. I mean, these guys, for example, will reward you with Old One's Favor at 250 a kill. Now, what does Old One's Favor buy you? We'll take a look. Let's take a look-see. You're going to get, and bear with me, I think, remember guys, anytime that you see anything from a pre-release, it is typically still in the works, so wait until launch to get a full idea of what these Blessed Warriors are going to be. But, for instance, Itzel will give us Blessed Saurus Warriors, which have Perfect Vigor on them. The Blessed Horned ones, which I don't know what they have. They might have a faster speed characteristic, but I have to double check here. These Kroxigors, for the most part, are the same. I think that these will be all changed as things kind of progress. This is Blessed Carnosaur. I think Carnosaurs already have Frenzy. Again, I have to take a look, but and magic resistance on this guy. But each one of these things, you'll get some version of a blessed unit. So Bastillodon with Solar Engine, Blessed Temple Guard, Pterodon Riders, Skink Skirmishers, Star Spears, Blessed Cold One Spear Riders, and then Blessed Stegodon. Then each one has an ultimate kind of ability you can trigger off. Quetzal gives you a lot of defense bonuses, especially when it comes to sieging, obviously. And these benefits will also be gained by the Defenders of the Great Plan, which is worth pointing out. Zolonka, you get your Celestial Beneficients, meaning tribute from vassals increased by 50%. And then Itzel will give you complete visibility over all your vassal territories. So as you move away from your vassals, this will at least increase your oversight on them and be able to move and defend them as you need to. I believe we covered... Oh, here. So Skink Chiefs of Distinction gives you more Skink Chiefs. I believe the rest of these are all blessed spawnings. Yes. King Priests of Distinction. So this is King Chiefs, Skink Chiefs. This is Skink Priests. Helps out with Skink Priest generation capacity and unlocking. And Slan of Distinction, increases the recruitment rank of them. This is Scar Veterans of Distinction. So depending on what kind of characters and heroes you want to focus on, might determine which one of these trees you go after. Depending on which kind of benefits you want for your army, might depend on which one of these trees you go after. I personally would go with Itzel because I want a bunch of Kroxigors to go hot and heavy with my big, massive Nakai badass. So as I get to the top of the Itzel's patronage, I can see what I'm going to get. So you can really plan out how you want your campaign to go from these three, I guess, temples. And at the same time, it builds some replayability because you have a lot of different ways to go about the campaign from that. So, okay, I want to build out a lot more Saurus, or I build a lot more Skinks. But you just get to really determine how you want to play this campaign in a little bit more of a fun, customizable way than most Lizardmen campaigns. Now, for Nakai himself, he does have First Spawn, which gives melee defense and recruitment cost reduction for Kroxigors and Sacred Kroxigors. To be expected. Now, as far as his skills go, red line's the same, blue line's the same, yellow line's the same for the exception of his Miasma of Despair ability, which is going to reduce leadership, speed, and vigor of anything in a 40-meter radius around Nakai for 16 seconds. Aura of Inertia is going to increase that to 24 seconds, and the same amount of debuffs or penalties are going to be applied to your enemy. Now, let's take a look at his special line, his solitary line. Now he gets Legendary Warrior, which helps out with his aura size and the leadership effect. He also gets Demon Crusher, which helps his weapon strength increase by 10%. Couple that with Enforcer of Order, he's going to have a 15% weapon strength bonus. But if you add into the fact that you're against Chaos, for example, it's going to be an even further weapon strength bonus. So that can get pretty out of hand pretty fast. Especially since Skaven, Dark Elves, Beastmen, Chaos, and Norska are going to be, and Greenskins, are going to be mainly what you're fighting about the majority of Southern Lustria. You also get Cold-Blooded Reflexes, which gives you Terror, and attacks are now, all of your attacks now are caused Discouraged. Sorry. Then First Spawning, which gives Frenzy for Kroxigors and Sacred Kroxigors, which is huge, and increases the speed of the entire army, meaning your Kroxigors will be moving at around 50 speed. The big boy himself will be moving at 55, which is quite awesome. Now, Adornments gives you casualty replenishment rate and horde growth, which is going to be necessary. You always need horde growth when you are dealing with hordes. And lastly, the Sacred Wanderer gives him Unbreakable. So you get a lot of cool shit here. He also gets his Primal Roar ability, 22% physical resistance and 44 melee attack. We took a look at this in the Lizardman unit guide, but it's worth bringing up as always. He does have the typical stuff you get at the very top, these three little bitties. But then he's got his Ogham Shard, not to be confused with Occam's Mind Razor, which gives him 25% magic resistance, 5% casualty replenishment rate, and +3 to Untainted for the local province. In addition to that, Golden Tributes. Now this works differently than it does in multiplayer. Multiplayer, it only gives the perfect vigor. In this instance, it also gives you 5 melee defense, because his melee defense isn't huge. It's not terrible, but it's not huge. And he also gets 5% ward save. So you have a lot of really great ways you can really build out this big Mamba Jamba. And you can make it so that his Kroxigors are just complete powerhouses in the campaign. That's why I'm saying I'm going Itzel with my Nakai campaign. Now, there is another portion of Nakai's campaign we haven't gone into. We didn't take a look at the technology tree for Gorok, and I apologize about that. But for this most part, it is the exact same technology tree you have come to expect and love with all of the Lizardmen. Not for Nakai. Now, a lot of Nakai's abilities are gated by requiring that you spend Old One's favor. But as you progress through these chains, you'll notice that you'll get specific benefits. Like this very top chain is going to be towards army recruitment and mustering. So army capacity, global recruitment capacity, all those will increase as you go down the sequences of command, creation, strategy, war, tactics, military, and total war. And the very bottom chain is going to be focused mainly on your growth, horde growth, casualty replenishment, building construction cost reduction, but for the most part here, you're going to want to focus at least up to the sequence of expansion to get that big juicy horde growth. But then as you progress through these portions, you'll unlock the ones that they're attached to. So you get kind of an interesting chain here in that this portion of the of each technology tree is barred by this portion of the ladder, or I'm sorry, the top and bottom portions of the tree. So it is very, you know, indicative. You have to focus on where you're going, or else you're just going to be like, oh, willy-nilly, you're going to slap all this shit all around. But Sequence of the Guardian is going to help out with your Sacred Kroxigors and your Temple Guard unit. So this is probably where I would go if I was trying to focus on my units here. But again, get different stuff like campaign movement for the topmost stuff. And this bottom stuff typically deals more with helping out your military, even though this is the one that has to deal with strengthening and building your military. So it's interesting because they lend to one another, which is quite cool. Then you have in the very center, Ancient Fortitude, immune to chaos attrition. When normally killed in action, your heroes will be wounded instead. So that's a faction-wide effect, which is pretty cool. Shield of the Old Ones causes terror for Kroxigor and Sacred Kroxigors. Then Metamorphosis, casualty replenishment, missile resistance. Did I miss any sequence of mass spawning? I think I looked at this one. Yeah, I mean, that's the most part. That's all of them. But I think as a whole, it's a way more fun and cohesive technology tree. The other one was just a little too rudimentary for me. It felt kind of like I was just moving through the motions of stuff. This, at least, I feel like if I move in one direction, I have to move in the other to complement it, because I'll get bonuses in the direction I so want to go. So, for instance, if I'm building up my military, I need to go down the growth so I can get stronger military. If I want to build up more of the civic things, I need to go down my higher military stuff to get more access to civic stuff. So I like that they kind of lend to one another, as I awkwardly tied that together at the end. The last thing here to go over are the two rights of rebirth and rights of mastery. Also, right of allegiance, sorry. All regions belonging to the defenders of the Great Plan will cause attrition to their enemies. It's very standard. We've seen this with a lot of other factions. But you'll notice that these two rights cost the Old One's favor and not gold. Especially Right of Rebirth. A non-replenishing army of blessed units will spawn for the defenders of the Great Plan at their capital. You basically get like a Lizardmen Wa, more or less. Then eventually you can move into Rights of Mastery, which will help out with Kroxigor recruitment across your entire faction for 5 turns. It'll buff up their weapon strength and their armor. And lastly, of course, Right of Awakening, so you can get some slime and you can access to Lord Croak. So, as a whole, I think this is a very different campaign. It's a very unique campaign. So, I guess the ultimate question is this the right campaign for you? What does this really entail? Well, if you kind of like more of the army aspect of Total War Warhammer, and you like being a Lizardman faction that is not so focused on the management of each individual city, because there is a lot to manage. The geomantic web is a very cumbersome mechanic. There are a lot of things that you have to put in mind when you're building out a Lizardman city, and it actually can be very, very tedious, especially if you're new to the game. This is going to be the campaign for you. You're going to be on the move. You're going to be attacking things. You're going to be far more aggressive. Expect a lot of big monsters in your army because you're focusing on Kroxigors, because you get such a huge innate bonus towards Kroxigors. You get a lot of really cool abilities to customize the approach of your campaign, focusing on very specific buffs or very specific blessed spawnings. You get a very fun way to get access to blessed spawnings that is a little bit different. As a whole, I think of the DLC campaigns, not the FLC, between this and Hunts Marshal, I think this is the easier campaign because you're a little bit on your own terms and you can build up however you want. You're not gated by Imperial supply caches coming in. You're not gated by your limited recruitment range. You have a lot more at your disposal, and at the same time you have a ton of tools at your disposal to make your armies pretty beefy and very strong. So hopefully this gave you a really good idea on how to approach Nakai, how you can really have fun with the Hunter and the Beast DLC. Now that you've really had a taste of all 3 of the campaigns and what they have to offer, hopefully it makes the 11th, the 12th, I never remember the full release date, it's 5 days from now, and I'm recording this on the 6th day from now, isn't it? This is the 5th. Who knows anymore? So when the game comes out, hopefully this makes it a lot easier for you to decide which character you want to jump into with the new Total War Warhammer 2 DLC. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave me a comment. I'll answer them as quick as I can. I will be gone over this weekend, so this is, I believe, Monday, so I will be just coming back today. So I'll still be able to answer things as I'll be on the move and have my phone with me. But as always, if you do have questions, please let me know. But have a good one, and take care.